Picture this. I'm standing in my kitchen, the faint hum of the refrigerator filling the silence, while the smell of last night's grilled burgers still lingers in the air. My name's Ursula, and at 35, I've carved out a life that feels like a well-worn pair of jeans, comfortable, familiar, maybe a little frayed at the edges. I've been married to Mark for 8 years now, and together we've built a quiet existence in our modest suburban home in Ohio. It's the kind of place where the neighbors wave as they mow their lawns, and the biggest excitement is deciding whether to splurge on a new grill for our weekend barbecues. I work part-time as a freelance graphic designer, piecing together logos and flyers from the corner of our living room, while Mark spends his days under the hood of cars as a mechanic. We're not rolling in cash, but we've always made do, until recently, when a curveball hit us hard enough to shake things up. Our evenings are often spent sprawled on the couch, some old crime show flickering on the TV, with Mark's arm slung over my shoulder as we decompress from the day. But beneath those cozy moments, there's a tension that's been creeping in. Money's tighter than ever, and a few weeks back we had to swallow our pride and borrow some cash from friends to fix Mark's truck after it decided to give up on us at the worst possible time. I won't bore you with the details just yet, but let's just say it stung to ask for help. Still, we've got people in our corner, and that's something I've always been grateful for. Speaking of that tension, it's been a heavy weight on my shoulders lately. About a month ago, Mark and I had to borrow $950 from our buddies Joe and Steve to get his truck back on the road. That truck isn't just a vehicle, it's his lifeline to work, hauling tools and parts for every job he takes on as a mechanic. Without it, we'd be sunk even deeper than we already are. I remember the day we asked for the loan. The way my stomach churned as I dialed Joe's number, hating every second of admitting we couldn't handle this on our own. But they came through, and for that, I was thankful, even if the debt has been a dark cloud hanging over us ever since. These past few weeks, I've been scrambling to pick up every freelance gig I can find, designing business cards, tweaking websites, anything to bring in a few extra bucks. Mark's been pulling double shifts at the garage, coming home with grease under his nails and exhaustion in his eyes. But no matter how hard we push, the numbers just don't add up. Rent, utilities, groceries, they keep piling up, and that $950 feels like a mountain we can't climb. Last night, we sat down at the kitchen table to face the mess head-on. The table was a battlefield of unpaid bills, crumpled envelopes, and scribbled notes of what we owe. The clock on the wall ticked louder than ever, each second a reminder of time slipping away. Mark rubbed his temples, his voice low as he admitted the truth I'd been dreading. Ursula, we're not going to make the deadline. There's no way we can pay Joe and Steve back by... It's a Saturday afternoon, and the sun is streaming through the curtains of our living room, casting lazy shadows on the carpet. I'm sitting on the couch, my hands fidgeting with the edge of a throw pillow, when the doorbell chimes. Mark glances at me, his jaw tight, before he gets up to answer it. I already know who's on the other side. Joe and Steve. They've come to talk about the money, that looming $950 debt that's been suffocating us for weeks. As the door swings open, I force a smile, standing to greet them. Joe's got that easy swagger as he steps inside, his leather jacket creaking, while Steve trails behind, quieter, but with a sharpness in his eyes that always makes me a little uneasy. Hey guys, I say, my voice brighter than I feel. Come on in, take a seat. We settle into the living room, an awkward tension hanging over us like a storm cloud. Mark perches on the arm of the couch next to me, his fingers drumming against his knee, while Joe sprawls out in the armchair like he owns the place. Steve sits stiffly on the love seat, his gaze flickering between us. I try to break the ice, offering drinks with a nervous laugh. Can I get you a soda or something? We've got some cold ones in the fridge. Joe waves me off with a casual grin, but there's something behind it, something calculating. Steve just shakes his head, his silence louder than words. The small talk stumbles along, weather, local news, nothing of substance, until Joe finally leans forward, elbows on his knees, and cuts through the pretense. Look, Ursula, Mark, we gotta talk about the $950. You know we can't let that slide forever. My stomach drops, but I nod, waiting for the hammer to fall. Then Joe's grin turns sly, almost predatory, as he adds, but we're reasonable. How about we cut the debt in half, if you do us a little favor? I blink, confused, a nervous chuckle escaping me. A favor? What kind of favor? I glance at Mark. My heart was pounding as I stood there in the living room, Joe's words hanging in the air like a thick fog. That sly grin of his, the way he dangled the idea of cutting our debt in half for some mysterious favor, it sent a shiver down my spine. I glanced at Mark again, hoping for some kind of anchor, but his face was unreadable, a storm brewing behind his eyes. Before I could press for clarity, Joe stood up, motioning toward the stairs with a casual tilt of his head. Why don't we take this conversation somewhere a bit more private, Ursula? Steve's gaze locked onto mine, a flicker of something intense passing through his usually guarded expression. My throat went dry, but I found myself nodding, my feet moving almost on their own as I led them upstairs to our bedroom, leaving Mark behind with the faint murmur of the TV drifting up from below. Stepping into that room felt surreal, like I was walking into a dream I couldn't wake up from. The bed was unmade, sheets tangled from the restless night before, and the faint scent of Mark's cologne still clung to the air. The curtains were half drawn, letting slivers of late afternoon light spill across the hardwood floor. I turned to face Joe and Steve, my breath catching at the stark contrast between them. Joe's confident smirk, like he knew exactly how this would play out, and Steve's hesitant but hungry stare, his fingers twitching at his sides as if he was holding himself back. My mind screamed at me to stop, to think about Mark just a floor below, oblivious to the line I was teetering on. Guilt clawed at my chest, sharp and cold, but there was something else too. A rush of exhilaration I hadn't felt in years, a dangerous pull that made my pulse race even faster. I'd never imagined myself here, caught in this moment, but now that I was, I couldn't look away. Things escalated quicker than I expected, the air growing thick with unspoken tension. It was like a dam breaking, all restraint slipping away as we crossed into forbidden territory. I won't paint every detail, but let's just say boundaries blurred. Here I am, in the dead of night, stepping out into the backyard with Joe and Steve, the cool grass tickling the soles of my bare feet. The air is crisp, carrying the faint hum of crickets in the distance, a quiet chorus to the pounding of my own heart. It's past midnight, and the world feels like it's holding its breath, watching us as we venture into this reckless, forbidden space. The thrill of being so exposed, out here where anyone could glance out a window and catch a glimpse, sends a shiver down my spine that has nothing to do with the chill. I can barely make out the shapes of the trees lining the fence, their branches swaying like silent witnesses in the moonlight. I steal a look at Joe, and the shadows dance across his face, sharpening the angles of his jaw, making him look almost otherworldly, like a figure carved from the night itself. There's a glint in his eye, a daring edge that pulls me in deeper, even as my mind screams to turn back. Steve, on the other hand, is a quiet storm beside me, his intensity radiating in the way he moves, deliberate and focused, his breath shallow as if he's holding back a tidal wave of emotion. My pulse races, every nerve in my body alive with the danger of this moment. A neighbor could flip on a porch light, peer through their blinds, and see us here, tangled in something we shouldn't be. The thought alone is a jolt of adrenaline, a high I've never known, making my skin prickle with both fear and an undeniable rush. I've never felt so alive, so untethered from the mundane cage of my everyday life. The weight of bills, the stress of deadlines, the quiet routine with Mark, it all melts away under the cover of this dark, daring night. Out here, I'm not just Ursula, the struggling graphic designer or the worried wife. I'm someone else, someone wild and free, chasing a feeling I didn't even know I craved. But even as I revel in this liberation, guilt gnaws at the edges of my mind, a sharp little reminder of the betrayal unfolding with every step I take. The morning after feels like a weight pressing down on my chest, heavier than any debt I've ever owed. I'm sitting at the breakfast table, the clink of my coffee mug against the wood, the only sound breaking the oppressive silence. Mark is across from me, staring into his own untouched cup, his face a map of emotions I wish I could unsee. There's hurt etched deep in the lines around his eyes, betrayal sharpening the set of his jaw, and a quiet resignation in the way his shoulders slump, like he's already given up on something vital. I want to say something, anything to bridge this chasm between us, but my throat feels sealed shut. The toast on my plate sits cold, crumbs scattered like the pieces of our life I've shattered. Then, after what feels like an eternity, he looks up, his voice low and raw, cutting through the stillness. "Did you enjoy it, Ursula?" The question hits me like a punch, and I freeze, my fingers tightening around the mug. I could lie, soften the blow, but I've already done enough damage with secrets. So I meet his gaze, my heart twisting as I nod slowly. "Yeah, Mark, I did." The truth spills out, sharp and unfiltered, and I watch the pain deepen in his eyes, a fresh wound I've just carved. He doesn't say anything else, just looks away, his silence louder than any words could be. I feel the sting of my own honesty, knowing I've pushed us further apart with that single admission. The kitchen feels smaller now, the walls closing in with the weight of what I've done. Later that day, the phone rings, jarring me out of the fog I've been wandering through. It's Joe, his voice casual on the other end, as if last night was just another transaction. Steve's on the line too, and they confirm what they promised. They'll forgive half the debt, just like they said. I should feel relief, a lightness at the thought of that $475 lifted off our backs, but instead, it's hollow, a victory that tastes like ash. I mumble a thanks, hang up, and sit there on don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment if you enjoyed this story. This will help us create more engaging stories for you.